and we didn't have the full money to invest, but that didn't mean that we couldn't do anything. It was a thought of what can we do, and that's what opened up to us when Jason sat us down that day at that meeting and said, look, these are the things that you can do, and I know you can do them because I did. And he said, I was broke and I was doing this.
All right, guys, here we go now. It is time to unlock more doors to deals. We're real estate investors here. We're real estate agents here, and we all have one thing in common. We believe that we can. We can live the life of our purpose. We can create financial freedom. We can build a better life for those that we love, and we can live the life of our dreams. I don't care if you're trying to do your first deal or your 500th this year. You can get to the next level, and we're here to help. Welcome to Doors to Deals. I'm your host and founder, Jim Manning. Today's episode can be found on doorstodeals.com/015. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're a beginning or more experienced investor, listen up. This show is absolutely in your wheelhouse and for you. Bryant is one of our deal makers that I personally coach, and he goes into his journey on how he went from 0 deals in his first 6 months to having multiple deals he's getting ready to close at the same time. Bryant has a lovely wife, Kay, and a beautiful daughter, and came to us brand new to investing, not having done a single deal before he started working with us. Bryant inspires me and is a constant reminder that work works when nothing else works. If Bryant can do it, if I can do it, so can you. So in the first half, we're going to break down some of the mistakes and head trash that he had to work through before he could get to his first couple deals. And then in the second half, we're going to talk about the habits that have landed him not only a single deal, but multiple deals at the same time, and what he's focused on to grow and scale his business. He also goes into details on a wholesale deal that he's going to be a part of as well. That's an absolute home run for him as well. So, all right, guys, no more talk for me. Here's the interview. All right, guys. So welcome. So today we have one of my good buddies, Bryant Brooks, on the line. And Bryant is he's starting to transition into like an intermediate investor, kind of still on the newer side. And he's one of my favorite human beings in the world that I have ever met. I just love this individual, and what I like and what I enjoy about some of these calls that we do is I think we can learn from everybody. I think there's not one person that we can't learn from, and regardless if you are kind of a beginner just starting out and kind of feel the same thing as Brian, or maybe you're kind of more seasoned, more experienced, I think there's going to be some valuable kind of lessons to learn from Brian and his journey. And I'm really thrilled that we were able to kind of talk you into coming on this, man. And I'm really appreciative. So Brian, why don't you kind of give us a background on kind of on yourself, just like a quick little background and kind of where you came from and what you did before real estate.
Well, sure. Well, Jim, first, before I do that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak on Door to Deals. I watched many of these over the months that I've been affiliated with you guys, and heard some amazing people say some things and share some stuff, and to share a podium or platform with those type of folks it's a privilege. So thank you. I thank you for that. So my background, my wife and I, we both have a background in pharmaceuticals. I've been in pharmaceutical quality for about 20 years. I classically trained with chemistry, and I only got my associate's degree. And in the midst of that and getting into the world, I realized, when you look 5-10 years down the line about where you really want to be, it wasn't necessarily matching up with the direction that I took. So I had always been had an entrepreneurial spirit in the back of my mind, and done several things. Even when finding real estate, I have a direct sales platform that I've been a part of for a few years that helps teach personal development, things of that nature, but still always thought about real estate from a distance. I see everybody else doing it, and buying a home was one of the craziest things I had ever tried to do, and saw how stressful that was. So I can only imagine what investing would be, and, had all this mystification around it, and was talking with my wife, with Kay, about what we should do. And she's like, I'm not necessarily into that platform that you're doing. That's fine. That's decent. But I think I want to turn my hand to real estate. Well, I'm like, okay. So it started off originally as her thing. I'm like, okay, you think it, kudos to you. I got your back. I'm here for you. Love you, babe. That type of thing. And we went to, of course, there's all different types of seminars that get you started in real estate investing. And you go to the first introductory course. It's free. And then they sign you up for a course. You get to that course, it's supposed to teach you everything. But when you get to that course, they have somebody says, hey, we got more to teach you for this price here, and on and on. And so we did that and made our initial investments in our education. And after our little boots on the ground training, it was actually about a year, about 13 months ago, we struck out and said, aha, we have the information, the education. We're going to strike out, grab some bandit signs, and going to do this thing. Well, the bandit signs never happened. We shopped the MLS. We got with a couple of realtors. I was actually working as a consultant in Decatur, Illinois. So I was only here on the weekends. And my wife, who was pregnant with this little one, was trying to do as much as she could during the week. So it's a crazy situation. And so we started out the first, 3 months, and then it gets to 6 months, and then you don't have any deals done, and you're like, okay, all right, your excitement level kind of decreases, right? The zeal for it starts to fall off, and then you start, doing the blame game. Okay, well, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. So it's bringing infighting into the relationship a little bit, not a lot, but just knowing that there's things that need to be done to be successful, and nobody's doing it. It's like being on the baseball field and the pop fly comes up, and you're looking at the center fielder and the left fielder, and they're looking at each other like, I thought you were going to catch it. Well, I thought you were going to catch it, And so we had a lot of that going on, but we understood a couple of things from the program that I was with. We understood that to be successful in anything, we needed leadership, literacy, and leverage. Literacy meaning understanding and being educated on what's going on, specifically in real estate, understanding what the market is in the area where you're at. So our teachers were in Utah, so they knew nothing about St. Louis market. So we knew that, okay, they gave us the general idea of education, but they didn't really understand what's going on in the St. Louis market, what's hot, what's not, what's the best strategies to be using to be successful, which we know can change depending on the economic situations. So the literacy there, the leadership comes back to what we were talking about, the infighting, being accountable for the things that are necessary to make your business successful. We didn't have that. In addition to, we didn't have a mentorship amongst anyone other than the people in Utah about what to do. And they were only trying to tell us, honestly, they were only trying to tell us, okay, just wholesale. That's all you need to worry about. Just focus on wholesaling. And we knew that while wholesaling can be lucrative, we knew that we should have multiple exit strategies when you get into this business and understand and be able to execute on that level. Because to be a good wholesaler, you kind of have to understand rehab. And so, because you have to be able to understand what's necessary, what's viable. So when you're marketing this product, you're not marketing something that does not meet what people are looking for. And I think that was one of the things that was missing for us.
Okay.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So if you had to kind of sum up your biggest challenge when you're starting out 6 months into this thing, not doing deals, other than potentially getting in arguments with like your wife and not like.
Well, that wasn't the biggest struggle. The biggest struggle, again, well, honestly, I bring that up because the biggest struggle is we knew that that the things that were necessary to make this thing happen, meaning the lead generation, the things that need to happen, meaning the appointments, the follow-ups, those things weren't happening. And if those things aren't happening, you're not going to have business in real estate. And so we got into this and realized that if we're not going to be accountable to somebody, if we're not going to get the mentorship to understand what's necessary, what are we doing?
So why do you think it wasn't happening? Like looking back now?
Two things. First of all, personalities. the personality, I'm more of an extrovert than my wife. And again, with me saying that it was her idea to do this, I was expecting her to do something that she wasn't comfortable doing. So we hadn't clearly defined expectations on that level. The second thing was knowing what market to go after. Where should we be going after high equity? Should we be going after, pre-foreclosures? And again, understanding that meant we had to understand what exit strategies were important, which we still didn't understand because the only thing we really knew was wholesaling. And so for us, it seemed like, again, that's why I talk about the literacy, leadership, and leverage, because that understanding what's important now for your business was critical. And that was something that we didn't really understand.
So if I can piggyback on that, so as an example of kind of understanding how exit strategies are important, is it as an example like short sales? Like you don't want to go after short sales if you would just want to wholesale because they make you sign that arm's length agreement. It's just not something that you can really do anymore. Back in the good old days, people did used to do it a lot, quite a bit. It was good, but now the market's changed and it's not a viable strategy. So is that kind of an example of what you're talking about there?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. So with that being said, it goes down to leverage. So the last part is leverage, meaning what resources are available to us to actually be successful. Because again, nobody is an island to themselves that does anything worthwhile, meaning that they have resources, they have people in their corner that they can bounce ideas off of, and individuals who may be a few steps ahead that are available. And so we're talking with our realtors, which our realtors only had a limited understanding of investing. They understand the retail side very well. We then started saying, hey, we need to look at different real estate investment associations in the area, which is something that, it looks like somebody just came through with a comment, which is something that we really didn't have a grasp on. So my wife went to a few. I can't say I was because I wasn't here in the town. Even though I got excited in Illinois and was shopping all these places over there, even though I had no connections in Illinois. The idea that came to us is, all right, we need to be around individuals who are doing this, a community of people that are involved, engaged, and committed to being successful in real estate. And that's how we got introduced to, Mr. Kevin Duragi and his group. And through that group, was introduced to Three Doors. And actually it was interesting. We had come across an off-market deal down in Wyoming where a gentleman had put together he had a Victorian home. It was a 3-2, but he had gutted the whole thing except for this bathroom hall he had done on the second floor. He had hurt his hand. He was in his late 60s, and he couldn't finish the job. And he owed way more on the house than he was pretty much upside down on the house. He was trying to get it to a point where he was retail, and the house was in the wife of his soon-to-be ex. So there was a whole lot going on there. We didn't know what to do, but we saw it was an opportunity to try to help this gentleman. And you guys actually came through, and then some network partners came through. And before we were even a part of the network partnership, you were just willing to help and say, hey, we see you're trying to do something here. Let us help you. And when we tried to work that deal, and unfortunately, he didn't want to go with the deal with us. And it was that learning experience of understanding what it's like to have resources in your corner, an individual in your corner that can help support.
Okay, so if I want to slow something down and kind of backtrack and make a point here, guys, because what he's saying is really important. So he said, no one succeeds alone. No one's on an island to themselves. So not to hurt any of y'all's egos on this call, or even my own ego being like a guy in my mid-30s at this point. If you think about it, especially in real estate, on a deal that you do, like even if you wholesale, you still are going to need a title company or a real estate attorney. You're going to need the end buyer. You're going to need There's all sorts of resources that you need. But if you're flipping a house, think of all the contractors, all the vendors that you need to succeed. And when one contractor, one piece of the puzzle is a weak link, the whole thing suffers. Like if you're doing a flip and the electrician, let's say he does a great job, but he goes 2 weeks over. Well, that's 2 weeks of taxes, 2 weeks of insurance, you name it, that you just had to do. And you literally physically made less of a profit on the deal because the people around you didn't do as good of a job as they could have, right? So when no one succeeds alone, there's a saying that's really, really common. And yet the longer I get into this, the more I realize how important it is that your net worth equals your net work. You become the average of the five. You become your net worth ends up being the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most, right? So this is a really important concept to kind of wrap your head around. There's a reason why the Yankees have won more World Series than anybody. Well, they pay to be around the best players in baseball, right?
Yeah,
but if you don't have the financial resources, well, there's other things that you can do too. So in Bryant's case, Brian went with a kind of a giver's attitude, and we got connected, and he started saying, "Hey guys, this is a complicated deal. Well, I know you guys are really experienced. You guys do all these deals. This is the value I can bring to you all, and can we help out?" So kind of continue your story now on that. I just wanted to make sure I kind of added that point in because it's something that is so easy to overlook and something that's really, really important.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you because, again, for me, that was everything. Again, we knew that we were very novice in this deal. We hadn't done any rehabs. We hadn't even flipped anything. We hadn't even done a wholesale yet. We're going on 6 to 8 months into this thing, and which is about the time that those who start this journey, or a lot of different journeys, they start to slowly decline because you're not seeing the success that you hope for when you first started out the journey. You get off excited and on fire. But 6 months, 8 months, 12 months down the line, if you've been hustling at this thing and hitting it with your best effort, with the time that you can put in, and nothing's turning up, you start to question, well, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing?
Is there really money in this? Does it really,
right.
Does it really work, or is it just not for me?
Absolutely.
And then self-doubt takes over, and
and there you have it.
Yeah.
But what our saving grace was it was actually pivotal at the beginning of the year. January comes, we've had our daughter, and we look around and we say, okay, we got to have a come to Jesus moment here. What are we going to do with this? Are we really going to pursue this? Because we haven't had the success. We know there's things that aren't being done. There's stuff that needs to be checked off. Where are we at with this business? We said, okay, we'll give ourselves to April. To get a deal done. If we don't get it done, then you're going back to work. Because by this time, I've started to do this full time. I've left the quality life alone, and I said I'll do this full time, and so it went from her thing to my thing, because I realized what it really is in this business, which is what touches me, and the passion for real estate is there's a way to add value to everybody. Anybody that you're coming across in the real estate industry, whether it's somebody who is trying to get from under a house, whether it's somebody who's looking for a house, whether it's somebody who's trying to start as an investor, whether it's a realtor trying to figure out how to sell a difficult situation, any of those situations are opportunity to add value, and that's at the core of who I am. I want to add value. I want to make a difference, and so I started looking at it from that aspect. But again, that's fine and dandy, but you don't have anything in place, no inventory, right? And so we went to a business vision summit in March. Sean McCloskey came through and introduced us to well, first of all, we heard from Chuck Bowman, who kind of laid it on us. Chuck is very direct. If you've ever heard of this gentleman, he's a life and air coach. And really was blunt about what it takes to make it. And from there, we ended up going to this business vision summit and sat down with a gentleman by the name of Jason Roberts, who has done some phenomenal things, went from rags to riches a couple times in the real estate industry. And when we looked at Jason and we said, yeah, we're talking about giving this thing up in April if we don't get something done. And Jason kind of looked at us and he said, well, all right, what inventory do you have? And I said, yeah, that's the point. We don't have it. He said, well, what have you done to get inventory? Well, we looked at each other and didn't have answers. So these were the critical moments. And he's like, look, he set out a game plan. This is what you do. This is how you build lists. This is how you get an auto dialer. You want your phone ringing. This is what you do, and lay these things out for us. And it gave us enough hope to continue to say, all right, let's pursue this and let's make this happen. By that time, there was a opportunity with the Three Doors team that had come up, and I said, well, if I'm concerned about not understanding the business, and I'm committed to this business, and these guys did 500 deals last year, if I can get an opportunity or a shot to work with them, I think I'd be in a great place to make this thing happen. And absolutely, since March, let's see, there's my first deal was a rehab that we're about to start down in down in Herculaneum. I have a wholesale deal that's closing at the end of the month. Actually, 2 deals closing this month. And then I'm looking at a 17-pack that we're evaluating to get out. And so since then, since my opportunity of being able to connect with Three Doors and sticking with it and sticking to guns, we've been able to open our possibilities to actually get the things we thought we saw when we first sat down in that real estate and education class a year ago.
So, okay, so now that you're actively doing deals in just a few short months that you've been kind of connected, kind of on our deal makers level, what's the difference in your daily routine when you were starting out as a newbie for your first 6 months to like what you're doing now to be able to get traction and start kind of getting to deals, open it up? What do you think?
Great question. And the first thing is everything. Schedule here. We can get money, but we can get money back, but we can't get time back. And I realized that time is of the essence. And then the other thing I realized is that there's priorities and obligations. And I was living out my obligations, but I wasn't living out my priorities, meaning the things that made me most successful in being in real estate were the things that I had to prioritize in my schedule. They had to be at a point where I was not resolved, or there was no excuse for not doing these things. And again, I didn't start off, it's like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym your first day and work out for 4 hours. You hurt yourself and never go back. And so what I did have was a hunger, though, that once I realized I had the pieces in place, that I need to go hit this thing. So I started calling people. So phone calls above everything. I have to make phone calls. I have to get in front of the people. I'm reading a book called How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling by Frank Betcher. And one of his turning points in that book was the illustration of he played for the Cardinals actually at one point and had injured himself and went back to normal life. And somebody introduced him to selling insurance. He got into that, was terrible at it. And he was about to quit until a gentleman said in one of his things, just to paraphrase, he says, you show me a man who's willing to tell his story to 4 or 5 people on a daily basis, and I'll show you somebody that can't help but make good on his business. And that's what I thought about what has changed is if I can get in front of 4 or 5 people, if I can get on the phone with at least 4 or 5 people, if I can get on the phone with 10, 15 people in a day, if I can talk to folks, if I can text somebody, if I can get in front and see the people, I have more opportunities to get more leads. And with more leads, I have more opportunity to do more deals. And that's really what it has come down to, and focusing on that. Now, the education part, of course, because I have a detailed part of my mind. Remember, the scientist guy wants to know all the nuances and details of everything. And I have all these different thoughts about understanding the real estate business, but nothing compares to getting deals done than lead generation, getting in front of people, getting appointments, evaluating the property, running the numbers, and doing the deal. Nothing compares to that. And so at the top of getting my real estate business going has been just that.
So if I can kind of piggyback on what Bryant said, when I started out, my biggest mistake was I overvalued information and I equated information to knowledge, and I undervalued action. So I thought, and for some of you that have already heard this, I'm going to tell it again because this is really important. I asked myself the question, what's everything that I need to know to be successful? And I tried to study online courses on flipping and working with contractors, ebooks, you name it, like forums, all that stuff. I spent 18 months of my life trying to pour into knowledge and trying to just get after knowledge. But the problem is that when you're only studying and when you're only going after information, it doesn't actually translate into knowledge, because the human brain's memory, until you actively do something, you're not going to actually build in the reps that it needs to be successful. So like, it's kind of the same thing, guys, as a baseball player that reads a book on hitting, but never gets into the batting cage and swings any baseball bat. You can kind of understand what it means to take a swing, but until you get in and actually physically get the reps, you're not going to get anywhere. And so it took me 18 months of trying to get to the point where I felt comfortable, like I had enough information at my hands, but you learn something. If you go to a 3-day seminar, you're lucky if you remember like one or two good things from that seminar, and you're not going to remember anything if you don't actually implement any of it, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, a good way to like kind of like realize this and have an awareness of this, guys, is what did you do this morning? What did you do yesterday? And think about what percentage of stuff you actually like remember. And until you've done something a couple hundred times, a couple thousand times, you're not going to develop the skill set and get the true knowledge that we crave. Information doesn't equal knowledge, guys. Knowledge can only come when you have a complement of information with the activities that then kind of cement what happens. So I kind of did the same thing. Yeah, just doing one deal in my first 18 months. And the other interesting thing about it, guys, is had I asked myself a different question, had I asked myself, who is everybody that I need to know to be successful? Now, all of a sudden, I don't have to know that much about foundation repairs, because I have someone that I trust, that when a house has foundation, I can write a contingency on it that, hey, I have to have my foundation repair guy go out to the house. And now I can lean on his knowledge and expertise. Mm-hmm. I don't have to suddenly know the book of real estate investing. I just have to get the right team members in place to be successful. And then all of a sudden, when you ask yourself that, what do I need to do to be successful? Lead generation becomes a big part of that, no matter how you want to do it, whether it's cold calling or networking or texting or all the ways, bandit signs, you name it, all the ways that there are to get out there. But getting in front of homeowners is a really important thing. So let's kind of continue on. I went on you got me excited, so I was like,
but here's the thing for me, Jim, to put a cap on that. Certainty. What we're looking for when we try to get all of this knowledge is, I was looking for certainty, so that when I stand in front of somebody, I was certain that what I had could bring value. But the thing is, we already understand real estate has value. What the certainty is you're trying to be certain that you can help add value to this person. You can actually close this deal. And once you get two things under, the first thing is understanding that I'm not going to do 100% deals all the time. I'll get close, but I may not. A batter that bats 300% means 7 times out of 10, he's walking back having fouled out, popped out, struck out. So first of all, understanding that.
Yeah, and you can join the Hall of Fame hitting 300, can't you?
Absolutely, all day. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing is, I became more certain when I knew the people around me were certain. Meaning, I had a circle of people, like you said, I had the leverage of individuals who were doing this thing, who could lead me in the right direction and help me to understand my goals and dreams and how to get there through real estate. Now, when I'm standing in front of somebody and I'm sitting in somebody's home and they're saying, look, I don't know how to get from under this house. I've lived here 26 years and I owe 80 grand. The repairs on this house are 40 grand. I don't know what to do. I can look at them in the eye and say, I have an option for you.
So here's what's interesting too, guys, is if you have that right team around you, I have an option for you, and it may not be me. I may not know how to do this, but I know somebody that does. And the amount of information that you actually truly need at that point, you can just go and, I mean, this is an amazing script in front of a homeowner. Hey, I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you solve your problems. If I don't know the answer, I promise you, I'm going to connect you with somebody else that does. So tell me about yourself. What's going on? How can I help?
Absolutely.
And then they get to if you're on the news side and they get to something that you're like, man, I've never heard of a short sale. The response is, well, hey, I haven't ran into this yet before, but I'm going to connect you with somebody that knows how to help. And the rapport and the trust that builds with the end client, with the homeowner, is unbelievable, right? Because they're like, wow, this person's actually looking after me and not what their best interest is. Man, I'm going to do whatever Bryant says because he's really looking after me at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You open up, people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And so from there, like I said, Jim, since then, routine wise. So the other thing is not that I've negated education, because I still do that. I go through my Sandler training. I go through at least one or two of my modules of Sandler training. I go through Learn Upon at least one or two modules on a daily basis. So I have all of that, and that's actually a part of my daily goals, which is a part of my weekly goals to get to where I say that I want.
So Learn Upon's the name of the online training vault that we have that's available for everybody in the network. For those of you that haven't heard of that. So this, what's interesting is I see two different types of people. I see people like Bryant and I that want to learn everything before they actually get into action mode. And then there's another type of person that's more of like a maverick that just wants to go out and do and hustle and make things happen. But then they really struggle too, because they're not taking the time to learn anything. So like, I think that when you're starting out, the most successful people I've seen are kind of in the middle. Like you're actively doing stuff, but you're learning and you're doing, you're learning and you're doing, you're learning and you're doing, and you're repeating and you're repeating, you're repeating. So Bryant was able to kind of take his tendency towards just learning, and now he's kind of gone into the middle. Absolutely. So let's talk about your habits then. So you're getting traction going. You've opened up unlocked deals now for yourself. So the habits in your first 6 months before you were doing deals, were you just learning the whole time? Hey guys, just wanted to let you know that we're launching a free Facebook group to continue the conversation about this episode or really anything and everything else that's on your mind. We're calling it Doors to Deals, and we'll have access to the Facebook group on our website, doorstodeals.com. You can also find it on Facebook as well. Doors to Deals is the name of the Facebook group. So if you want to continue the conversation, connect and meet people and help us launch this thing, please join the group. Love to have you on it, and look forward to kind of seeing you online on Facebook. Thanks, guys. The habits in your first 6 months before you were doing deals, were you just learning the whole time and then nothing was getting done? Okay, so
I was learning. I was learning. I was looking at things. So what we would do is we would both go on MLS. Well, actually, because we didn't have access to MLS because we weren't licensed, we were having our agents pull stuff from the MLS, but we were looking at things on Realtor.com and on Zillow, trying to see properties there, and then trying to figure out, okay, how do you make this transition from seeing the property that you think is good to getting into the property, getting in touch. And the thing is, we were getting in touch with other realtors, which was good for our network, but we weren't getting in front of homeowners.
So if I can piggyback on something for those of y'all that are like investors and you're kind of more on the intermediate level and you're thinking, oh, well, the MLS isn't a good way to find deals. I mean, Ryan and I have bought and made over 50 grand on several MLS deals. Okay. The problem's not the MLS. The problem is the MLS is really competitive and you have to be an expert and incredibly good at the MLS to make it work. So like all these little nuances of just the workflow of, well, I didn't really know how to get a hold of the realtor to get access to the property, and that would take several days to do it. A lot of those MLS deals that are the ones that are any good probably already snatched up by the time Bryant's even able to take a look at the properties. So what happens, what I see a lot of kind of intermediate and beginning investors go is they try and go after MLS, they try and go after bandit signs, they try and go after direct mail, they try and go after cold calling, and they spread everything out. And they're like, well, none of this real estate thing doesn't work. Well, what can you master? What can you hone in on and get really, really good at? If it's the MLS, I promise you there's money in bandit signs. I promise you there's money on the MLS. I promise you there's money everywhere. But what do you want to become world class at that no one else can match? I mean, maybe you're a real estate agent like Scott, who's kind of listening in on this call, that you've been a kind of a mega badass agent when it comes to land deals and just regular old client deals. Well, how can you take that book of business and optimize it and actually start to do some investment lead generation too? Because you can do it. You just have to kind of open your mind and be creative to it. So like, depending on who you are, depending on what you already have established, you're going to have to make different strategic decisions. So one person, bandit signs might be the best thing in the world to do. Another person, they might be the worst thing in the world to do. But the issue becomes, we've talked about this one before too. Bruce Lee says, I fear not the man that's kicked 1,000 kicks. I fear the man that's had the same kick. He's kicked it 1,000 times. So like, can we master any individual of these things? Okay. So anyway, I'm just like going on tangents today. I think Bryant's like, I'm feeling the energy, man. I appreciate you bringing it. So, yeah. So go ahead. So let's go back. So you were starting out on the MLS, trying to make that work, and you ran into some problems. What else habits wise were you trying to do when you're just starting out?
Again, it was more of where was my time? So during the week, again, it was difficult, of course, like I said, to do. I'm in Decatur, Illinois, and so I wasn't commuting every day for 4 hours total. I was only commuting on the weekend. So I'm really trying to cram a whole lot into a small amount of time. And that's also in addition to everything else that regular routine has to happen for family life. And so it made it difficult feeling that separation from my wife, who was my partner, and as well as from the market. So I couldn't do driving for dollars here. And at that time she was working about 8-10 hours a day. So she couldn't do driving for dollars here either. So again, and not really understanding, again, our understanding of how to pull lists online was skewed. You know, how much it costs to pull a list of individuals in high equity and all this. We thought we were having to come out these hundreds of dollars because we were hearing direct mailing being an expensive way to do things. That's what we were hearing. That's what we were computing, because we really didn't understand that, yes, there is an investment. Again, it's the difference between an expense and an investment. And we didn't have the full money to invest, but that didn't mean that we couldn't do anything. It was a thought of what can we do? And that's what opened up to us when Jason sat us down that day at that meeting and said, look, these are the things that you can do. And I know you can do them because I did. And he said, I was broke and I was doing this. So that eliminated that excuse of what is possible to be able to be successful in getting those leads. Again, it comes back to what are we doing to get our leads? And at that time when we were not successful, we weren't getting a lot of leads. And we finally broke down and took that on. We had another course. I'm sorry, I skipped that part. There was another part in there where we got another online course through another company that taught us this rule, which really was a weekly accountability of what you do. You send out 25 letters, do 25 calls, and have four networking meetings, and 2 offers every week. That was supposed to be it. Which, all right, now we got a game plan. 25 letters, 25 calls. Who's making the calls? Who's sending the letters? Who's sending the offers? And so again, we still had a great game plan, but we weren't executing. And for whatever reason, we had limiting beliefs that were keeping us from executing. And I think that mindset is what hurt us in those months. is our limiting beliefs of what's possible. Again, back to that thing, I think I need to know everything, that analysis paralysis or that detailitis, whatever you want to call it, kept us from actually seeing the potential opportunities that were ahead of us if we just went ahead and pursued it and then figured out the other parts on the back end. If we had more action. And one of the things that's come from that is the understanding that work works when nothing else works. If the work that I'm putting in to get in front of people and see people works when nothing else works. And that was what was key for us in that transition from where I was then to where I am now. And I believe, honestly, because of that, I can go to any industry, any area in real estate and be successful because I'm willing to put in the work.
So what was now that you're hustling and you've kind of figured out how to rock and roll with that, work works when nothing else works. Was there any sort of like epiphany that then got you into action mode?
Yeah, it was definitely when I realized that when I sit down in front of people, for me, that's my strength, because I love to relate to people. I really have a heart for people. So when I can sit down in front of you, when I can talk to you, when I can understand where you're coming from, even if what I have doesn't fit your model. And it's funny, I had a stack of cards, business cards of realtors and investors and contractors and things of that nature before I started this business because of my other program. And so I started calling through those people and rekindling relationships with them, because I knew that now I know I have something that directly relates to their industry. And it wasn't about me getting something from them. It's about, what can I offer you? I now offer you an opportunity that if you have a property that you can't get rid of, I'm your guy. If you have a client that's looking for properties, I'm your guy. What can I offer to you? And what I realize is now when I sit down in front of anybody, it's about what I can offer them, not what I can get from them. And so if I can't offer you anything, and if what I have doesn't help you, I don't want you to want it as much as you don't want it, if that makes any sense. And because of that raised my ability to have certainty, back to that word again, to have the certainty that no matter who I'm talking to, I can sit down with you, give you a viable deal, and it helps me, like Sandler says in the training, it's about what you feel after you've left that meeting. It's not necessarily as how you feel about yourself after you left that meeting. And I know when I leave a meeting that I'm leaving having given the best effort I could to add value to that person. And at the end of the day, that's what helps me to drive forward in this business. And I see more opportunity more than ever because of that.
So I had a pivot in kind of my mindset on kind of having a lot of fear on picking up the phone, doing cold calls or other kind of prospecting, and that it was the same thing. It was a mindset of, okay, there's somebody that is scared that really needs my help, and I know how to solve their problem, and they're kind of curled up kind of in a corner just somewhere. They're too scared to reach out to anybody. Well, I have to be willing to reach out, and I have to be willing to even maybe get yelled at a little bit by some people that are just jerks, so I can help that person that isn't going to be helped unless somebody like me gets a hold of them. So yeah. I'm actually being selfish and putting my own comfort, my own needs in front of that homeowner that really needs my help. So I have to be willing to kind of go through things. And when I had that mindset and when I had that shift, it's amazing how much kind of balls or courage, whatever you want to call it, you can have when it comes to that type of thing.
It's funny you say that, Jim, because the other thing that changed is my desire to do more follow-up, which you recently did a training on that with us about the importance of a follow-up. So one story, there's a lady that I called that was on a list that I got. I called her in May. And when I called her in May, she's like, I'm not interested. I'm good in my house, blah, blah, blah. 2 months later, to the day, I called her back. and and you can hear that there's distress in her voice. And I go through the same spiel. Hey, looking to see if if you were looking to sell your home, whatever the script was. And she literally says to me, she's like, I'm sorry, I don't think you would even want my home. Now, mind you, just 2 months ago, 60 days ago, she was like, oh, everything is fine and dandy. I'm good. We're good. And 2 months later, she's in a distressful place where she's like, I can't sell my home. What happened is in that time, we had a heavy rain. Her basement flooded and the insurance wouldn't cover it for some reason. And she tried it. And then some investors had called her somewhere around that same time. And they looked at it and told her they wouldn't buy it from her. She's like, the people that buy ugly houses won't even buy my home. So she's in absolute distress. And that's what I'm talking about, Jim. That's the point that you don't know. There are people praying for us. I don't care how pretty the house is. There are people praying for somebody to bring them an option of being able to get from under whatever it is that they want. Now, does that mean everybody's looking for it? No. But again, we're not looking for everybody. A couple deals every month makes you a very nice paycheck. And that's what you're looking for. Who are the couple people you can serve on a monthly basis, on a consistent basis, and build a rapport with? And that's how you become successful in this industry, I believe.
Okay, so we wanted to talk about a deal, and we're kind of getting on time, but
Sure.
so your habits, what do they look like now today, now that you're actively doing deals on like a day-to-day basis?
So if I was to split it up, I have at least 2 hours a day contacting, at least. I have at least an hour to 2 hours of following up because I have enough contacts of people that I need to follow up with. So that actually has grown. And so then I have my training for about an hour, and then field appointments. So going out and seeing new properties and getting offers in. So I have a goal of 5 offers a week. I have a goal of at least 10 blind offers a week from driving for dollars. And I have a goal of 5 appointments. So my thing is, for every appointment I go on, I'm putting an offer out.
So, and then about half the time is lead gen follow-up. The other half is appointments. So, I love that. I love hearing that because, especially beginning investors, you kind of miss the whole follow-up thing. The story that Bryant just said was so perfect, is that people go in waves of motivation. Just because they're not motivated enough to sell your property today, and doesn't mean that something didn't happen in their life or to their property tomorrow. And if you're not following up, you're going to be missing out on 80% of the deals that you do. I mean, if you're doing follow-up properly, 80% of your deals should come from over 30 days of follow-up in any given month. So, okay, so let's talk. You have a wholesale deal that's still kind of in the works right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just kind of talk about kind of this deal, and then kind of like some of the lessons that you've learned from it, kind of in the deal deep dive. So,
Sure.
so kind of like talk to me about kind of the acquisition on it.
Okay, perfect. So, I affectionately call this deal the penny that won't go away. I saw this deal initially before I was with 3 Doors back in January. It was somebody handed me a flyer of this property, and it was a new agent I had networked with somehow, and we were going to look at it and try to evaluate it, and at that time it didn't work for us. So a couple months down the line, somebody mentions that deal to me again from another agent, and I say, well, okay. I don't know, it didn't work last time, and I kind of tossed it away. 2 weeks later, the deal comes back to me again, and I say, okay, this keeps coming my way. Let me look into this. So I knew that the first thing with this property, that there were some heavy foundation issues with the property, which scares a lot of people away. from a property. Foundation issues, because they can be very heavy, very expensive. And then there's still also the question of, does the foundation issue get fixed where it's going to be lasting or sustainable? And so I met Stephen Burton, who's the foundation guy at a meeting, and asked him to come out with me and say, okay, give me your best guesstimate on what this would be. And he was very willing to help, came out and said, okay, look, this is going to take you about 15 to 20 grand to get done. I said, okay. So now with that number, I'm able to put that into the other repairs that I saw in the house and say, okay, this might be able to work. So I put some numbers together, went on another appointment to the house to look through it again to verify what I thought were repairs, took our construction manager at the time through, and put in an offer. The offer was lower than what they anticipated. They came back, there was some negotiation there, and we ended up saying, look, there was a cap on the amount that we could put in to see the profit that we wanted, the 20% profit that we want to see in this. So if this is as much as we can give, and they said, no, that's not enough, we said, okay, well, fine. So we left the deal alone. Then the deal came back. Jim, you saw an opportunity because some information was given to you. Again, that's one of the lessons learned. Information, like you said, knowledge and information are different things, but that doesn't mean that you don't seek out information, because having the right information can change circumstances. And that's what happened. Jim, you had come across some information, you passed that information on to me and said, hey, look, this could still be a viable opportunity with this information in mind. And I said, okay. And I'm like, this just won't leave me alone. All right, we're going to keep going on with this deal. So we moved forward and was able to get the property under. The owners are excited. They called their family in. They had about 40 years of stuff in the house they need to clean out. So their kids came out during this COVID time and are cleaning the property out. And since then, it was on the market for wholesaling. So first thing, when you have a wholesale deal, the wholesale deal starts when you have it under contract. That's when the timer starts. And I say that because I think it was about a week and a half, Jim was like, yeah, we need to get on this deal. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we need to get on it. No, because I got it under. So I'm like, okay, it's cool. We got 30 days. It's fine. Well, a week turns into 2 weeks turns into a month. And before you know it, you're at the end of the deadline for the inspection period. And you're scrambling, trying to figure out who you can talk to. Well, luckily, Jim was keeping up with me and was following up and keeping me accountable to this deal, to where I was able to start hustling. I realized what he was saying, that the sense of urgency was there. We didn't have a lot of time. This was about 2 weeks into it, and I needed to get on the phone. So I started, just bulldogging the phone, man. Just started calling all these different investors, call some developers, and some people are like, yeah, we're interested. Some people are like, you know what? Oh, no way in hell am I doing that. So, and everything in between. And we finally got to a situation where I had it under contract. I had a sincere buyer. He walked through, brought his people through. Everything has looked so good up to the last minute. But luckily, I kept marketing and happened to run into a gentleman at another property that I was at that I couldn't even get into because I didn't have the lockbox code. But a whole nother story. Through a strange series of events, I met another gentleman and that was a contractor, and something said to me, why don't you tell him about this property? I'm like, he doesn't know me from Adam. So, I see him walk out, I greet him, I give him my business card, and I see you're a contractor. I said, are you looking for properties? And I said, do you do additions on property? He's like, I do all of that. And which was one of the key things to this property being marketed, is being able to see the possibilities, because at the square footage it is, the property value was at least $200,000 less than what it would be if you could increase that square footage, which was something that Jim had kind of pointed out to me. We even went on did some comps on the MLS to find some things out. And again, all that information was helpful to get to this gentleman and explain that to him. And he said, I'm definitely interested. So he goes by the property the day that I'm supposed to meet let me see. So the day that I'm supposed to meet the other individual was the day that I meet him. 2 days later, he goes by to see the property, and then the next week he's like, "Let's do this." And so, and it literally was the last day of the inspection deadline that he comes through. And so my biggest lesson learned is there is a sense of urgency when you're marketing a property. There is a sense of urgency. It doesn't. Time can get away from us. Again, time is so precious, and you can't get it back. And even if you're paying attention to your deadline, if you know your deadline is coming, but you're still not moving on it, you don't have the right sense of urgency. And that had to change the priorities in my day. So now, instead of my follow-up being, which I did some follow-up, but my follow-up became more so on following up with individuals about moving this wholesale deal rather than just a follow-up for the general appointments that I was trying to get. So I had to re-navigate those things. But because I did, I had accountability to an awesome mentor, and I had and was hungry to make sure that this deal got done. Surely those were the things that helped me to get this property to where it is, to where now we're probably going to see an amazing opportunity, and I can't wait to see what happens when this renovator gets done. He's already explained some of the things he wants to do, and I'm super excited to see how this rehab goes, even for the family, because the family didn't want the house to be torn down, which is what most people were saying they would do if they bought it. And the family had been in the house for 52 years. The daughters literally with tears in their eyes when they found out that we were just trying to rehab and renovate instead of tear down, were grateful because all of their childhood memories are in that home, and they didn't want to see it go that way. So again, not that understand that, it's business, but when you can see what something does like that for someone, that's a huge win in and of itself. So that makes it priceless. So.
Yeah. And it's interesting to, like when you're doing the lead gen, you're doing the follow-up, all you're trying to do is get to a deal under contract that then you have the work to finish. So like if all you're doing is spending time on lead gen and follow-up, and then you get houses under, but you still focus only on lead gen and follow-up, it's going to really greatly impact the amount of sales that you have, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that was pretty neat that you kind of became aware of that and adjusted your schedule to make that happen. Okay, guys, so for this particular show, go to doorstodeals.com/015. Again, that's doorstodeals.com/015. Go out, live your purpose, and above all else, go after your dreams. Till next time. Thanks for tuning into this show. For more episodes and resources that will unlock Doors to Deals, check out our website, doorstodeals.com.